If we can
SMTV.
Three Tenets podcast.
Three Tenets podcast.
Welcome to the Three Tenets podcast, the show that gives an in-depth look at Army National Guard recruiting, retention, and attrition management with soldiers in the field and instructors at the schoolhouse, as well as updates from the Strength Maintenance Training Battalion.
I'm Caly Allen.
And I'm Richard Frant, and this is the Three Tenets podcast.
Today we get to sit down with Sergeant First Class Jordan Jones. Sergeant Jones is Special Forces Medical Sergeant who is here to talk about his book, Holos, and on performance and wellness in high-stress professions and environments. Welcome to the podcast, Sergeant Jones.
Hey, Caly, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
We're glad to have you. So can you tell me just a little bit about your background, what you're currently doing here at PEC, and, maybe a little bit about why you enlisted?
Yeah, sure. So I've been in for 20 years, or right at 20 years. I say that. In August, it'll be 20 years. And about the last 10 or 11 have been in Special Forces, 2nd Battalion, 20th Special Forces Group in Mississippi. Before that, I was actually in the Louisiana National Guard, and about, 10 years into that, 9 years into that, I went to a Special Forces Readiness Evaluation, made it through, and got to go to selection in the Q course as an 18 Delta. It's probably the pinnacle of my military career, actually. I am no longer on an ODA. So I came off about 3 years ago due to injury and was asked to become a human performance and wellness coordinator. And we had no idea what that was. They actually just said, hey, you were a medic. I also had a background as a master fitness trainer in the Army and was back in school for counseling. And they kind of said, hey, this tornado of experience makes sense for holistic health. I know in the Army, they have the H2F program, Holistic Health and Fitness.
Yeah.
And so HPW is the Special Forces version of that.
Okay, that's awesome. Was there any part of you that was hesitant on kind of heading up that?
Oh, absolutely. I asked my command, what is HPW? And they're like,
Right.
we're not really sure. You're going to figure it out. I'm like, okay, so there's no standards, there's no nothing. And they're like, well, there is. You're just going to have to kind of figure it out because it's new to us. So, which was exciting actually to kind of build it from the ground up and see where it went from there.
And how long have you been doing that now?
3 years.
3 years. Okay.
Yep, 3 years.
Can you tell us a little bit about like how that started versus where you are now with that program?
Yeah. So going from a blank sheet, I just kind of looked at the commander's critical points, and which were suicide prevention, addiction prevention, divorce rates inside of special operations, those kind of things, and then managing critical events or crisis management. And I was looking at it and thinking, how do we get left of that? Because I don't know if you've heard it, but most people don't enjoy suicide prevention classes, right? Right. And the more I thought about that, I'm like, we're literally redlining. We're waiting until a critical moment to call a friend or check in on somebody or call this hotline to get the help you need. And I thought, how do we say left of bang in our community. So how do we back this up so that we're not at a critical event? And about the same time, I had another 18 Delta, another Special Forces medic say, hey, there's a webinar for operator syndrome going on. You should log in and listen to it. And it happened to be Dr. Chris Free, who is the actual writer. He wrote the paper on operator syndrome in 2020. And I listened to him for about an hour. I was like, man, he gets it. This guy knows me. He knows my guys. And he's really onto something here. So how do I take all this doctor knowledge and my experience and turn this into a class that guys will listen to and actually apply to their day-to-day life? And maybe it'll help, get left of serious or critical events.
So before we kind of dive into your book, could you tell us, for those that might be listening that don't know what operator syndrome is, can you explain what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. So operator syndrome is a collection of symptoms, and It's multiple layers that cause these symptoms, such as TBI, physical injury, hormone issues, sleep issues, and then all of that creates all these symptoms of fatigue, memory loss, or cognitive decline, feelings of loss of identity. This collection of symptoms, you can't really be diagnosed with it. It's a bunch of individual diagnoses, but if you're in a high stress profession, then it can be assumed that it's operator syndrome.
So I know we kind of talked a little bit before that, we focus on recruiting and retention, attrition management. Yeah. That's what our schoolhouse is here on Pet Campus. But, recruiting and retention, that's a high stress, high performance job.
Yeah, absolutely.
You are required to make mission. And if you don't make mission, it's a big deal. Right?
Yeah, I've heard it's cutthroat over there.
It doesn't just affect you. It affects the whole nation, right?
Right.
So can you kind of talk about maybe like some habits or things that people could form to help with, prohibiting like this operator syndrome coming?
Yeah, so that's where it gets kind of crazy, is you can't just focus on one thing. And in the military, we're really hyper focused on physical, right? Mm-hmm. It's all about physical training and where you are, readiness, physical readiness, right? Mm-hmm. Which is absolutely important. You have to have that. But part of it, the part we kind of slip up on, is like physical therapy or massage therapy or chiropractics, and making sure you're going and doing blood draws. Nobody really talks about that. Hey, you should go get your blood drawn and see what are your levels, just to, whether it's heavy metals or hormones or whatever it is, see where you're at. There's definitely, I would say, probably still a stigma towards counseling, going to counseling and talking to somebody. And it doesn't have to necessarily be a therapist. It can just be a cognitive coach or life coach, if you will, to keep all of that level. Are you even tracking your sleep? So that when you look at all of those things and you say, hey, how do we apply this? What are some tidbits for a healthier life? I would say, 1, get your blood tested. See where you are. 2, are you wearing some sort of biofeedback like a Garmin? And make sure that you're seeing where are you with your sleep and your HRV. So HRV, your heart rate variability, is basically the milliseconds in between heartbeats, and it's a good indicator of stress and where you are. Some really easy, practical things you can do. We call it in the military tactical breathing. Have you heard of tactical breathing?
Yeah, I have.
So you can take tactical breathing. In the civilian world, it's called box breathing. 5 seconds in, hold your breath for 5 seconds, 5 seconds out, and then hold your breath for 5 seconds. And it's an instant physiological change. You can watch your heart rate come down, your blood pressure will come down. And that's basically taking you out of sympathetic nervous system and swapping you into parasympathetic nervous system, which is the problem. We're in sympathetic overdrive. The majority of anything that's high stress, your body tends to start living in the sympathetic nervous system. And so that's the key, really. I guess that's the key to all of it, is we're really good at being switched on. How do we switch off? When does that happen? Yeah,
I think that's what our NCOs, they struggle with that. There's never an off. You're constantly working 24/7.
Yeah.
So I think like even these breathing exercises that you're talking about, that can be something you can do in the office or on your drive to a location, something like that.
Yeah,
right?
I was actually doing it on the way here. So it kind of becomes a habit there's so many other benefits to box breathing. I mean, you're oxygenating your blood, your stress, your mood, everything changes when you can get yourself out of sympathetic nervous system and swapped over to parasympathetic. So if you don't know, or if you're listening, sympathetic nervous system is going to be fight or flight, which we all kind of have heard that.
Right.
Parasympathetic is going to be rest and digest. And that's the side we need to get into, learn how to get into, and then switch on when we need to, and then throttle back when we need to also.
How quick is it for someone to learn these habits? Like how long does it take them to form them?
I don't know a time frame that would be. I know the results are instant.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you have high blood pressure and you're out there and you want to beat the blood pressure cuff when you when you go do a PHA, let's say, you can literally box breathe while the machine is running, and you can watch your heart rate and your blood pressure come down. The key is not just doing it during a checkup. It's like you're saying, make it habitual.
Right.
Something that you're doing daily, taking time to just sit. And then there's also, you can layer all of this. That's the cool thing about it. You can do cold showers. That's going to exhaust your sympathetic nervous system and send you into parasympathetic. But that is an external stressor. It's a way to basically train, which is what the Army does anyway. So if I want to train myself to get into parasympathetic nervous system and I don't have time to do a cold plunge or something like that, I can get up in the morning, take my warm shower, but the last 45 seconds to 60 seconds, I'm going to turn it to as cold as I can stand it, which is an external stressor on me, and then box breathe in it and learn how to control my physiological response to that external stress and calm back down. And then when I get out, you'll be refreshed for the day. I know it sounds crazy.
It does it does sound crazy. So I'm guessing, like, when you're doing these things and you make them a habitual thing that you actually do, studies probably have shown that it does help you. Correct?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. And, in the book Holos, or the guide Holos, I have all the references to all this, because the people much smarter than me actually study this stuff, and they spend a lot of time studying us, military, law enforcement, first responders. They know all the statistics about us. So I basically just kind of took their work and tried to collect it into something easily digestible.
So could you tell us a little bit more about, like, Holos, how you got into being an author, or a guidebook author?
Yeah, I guess if we want to call it that. I was writing a class. So I've been doing this for my guys for about 3 years in special operations. And I started writing a slide deck to teach it to law enforcement and first responders, the same thing. I have friends that work at the Regional Counter Narcotics Academy in Mississippi. And so I was writing a class for them. And as I was going through the class, I thought, man, it would be really handy to have a student guide, like little blurbs about that follow along with the slide deck. I mean, all Army classes have student guides, so I need one too, right? So I start writing them, and I actually sent them to one of my friends, and not knowing that he was just happened to be sitting in a doctor's office when I sent him 5 or 6 of these little student guides. And one of the books I sent him was actually about hormone replacement therapy, and he happened to be sitting in the doctor's office getting his blood drawn for hormone replacement therapy. Wow. And so he didn't respond, obviously. And that afternoon he calls me back and he's like, "Hey man, where did you get this information?" I was like, "I don't know. I've just collected it over years. I mean, I was a medic, and then I read about this stuff because I kind of nerd out on it." And he says, "Well, I actually use your hormone replacement therapy guide in the doctor's office, and he wanted to know where this information came from because it was one of the more comprehensive blood panels he'd seen for hormone replacement therapy." And I was like, "Well, awesome, man. I'm glad that worked out for you. Perfect timing, I guess." And he's like, "No, man, listen, you need to take all of these little guides. How many have you written?" And at the time, I think like 6 or 7. And he was like, "Write more and put them together as many chapters in just one guide. So that if a guy were to buy it or get it, it's all in one spot. And you can use it for your class too, sure, if that's what you want to do with it. But it needs to be all in one spot." And just because he believed it was very digestible, I'm not an author, and I don't write it at a medical level. I write, I guess, at my level, which is easily understood. And so that's what I did. I put it together. I definitely never intended to have a guide on Amazon or be published or anything like that. But that's where we are now. So yeah.
But that's exciting.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. A lot of people have gotten really excited about it. I think the more important thing to me, honestly, is I've had people that I don't know through friends find it, purchase it and then read it. And then when I run into them or get introduced to them, they're like, man, this is awesome. I didn't know what was going on with me. I didn't understand why I don't feel the same. My marriage isn't doing so great. I have a really hard time relating to baseball dads or whoever it is outside of uniform. And that's not just military guys. That's law enforcement and first responders. Everybody kind of have a difficult time relating to what we call first world problems. You know, not so worried about the fantasy football team falling apart over the weekend because nobody's dying, you know? And then what's even I found interesting is some of those guys have had their wives read the book and they're like, this makes so much sense. I mean, it gives them a whole nother perspective on their spouse of, man, I didn't even realize this is how you felt. And we don't know how to put that into words. Yeah. So it's been kind of a really neat experience to see it help.
Yeah, I can say as a civilian, talking and working with the military, it's two different languages.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Being able, and I'm not even talking about acronyms. I just mean,
I don't even know what the acronyms mean half the time either. I just know, I don't know what they stand for. I know what they mean.
Yes, exactly. But the conversations that I have in the office versus going out with like some of my friends and hanging out with them outside of work that are not in the military, never been a part of the military, it's just two different, completely different worlds.
Yeah, it really is. I agree with that. And you know, I'm at the end of my career, and so I'm spending a lot more time with civilians, and just the whole structure and thought process is different. And so, you know, it can be a challenge. Transitioning is a challenge, you know. And so if you kind of loop this whole big cycle back into recruiting, how do we keep those young soldiers healthier longer with longevity and quality of life? Because one day they're going to be out of uniform. It's going to happen. It's not a lifelong job. It's just not, unfortunately. Yeah. If we can keep high stress professionals healthier longer, and just open their eyes to themselves, self-awareness and awareness of their spouse and their kids, you know, maybe we can save marriages and divorce rates. And again, to me, that's pushing it left. If your family's intact, because I don't know any soldiers, I don't know any high stress professionals that don't love their families. Right. So when they lose that foundation, that's a really easy way for them to start slipping, right? And so if we can keep that healthy, maybe we can keep them around longer.
I'm wondering if maybe the National Guard could be another alternative to active duty. Because, I mean, although there's active duty positions in the Guard, like AGR, most of our NCOs are AGR or ADOS, right? So they're full-time. But when it comes to, like, some of those that are struggling, I wonder if transitioning into a National Guard position and going back to that more citizen soldier lifestyle might be beneficial to them. That's more like M-Day.
Yeah, it definitely could. There's so many things that go into that because it depends on your unit and what your MOS is. I'll also say that I have a lot of respect for M-Day guys because they're balancing a family, a career, and the military. So that it's really difficult to say that the M-Day position would be the better option. I think it's just about being intentional. No matter where you are, being intentional about what's important to you and not finding your identity solely in the uniform. Your identity's got to lie, you know, in that I'm still a husband or wife. I'm still a father or mother. I'm still whatever your belief system is, these deeper meanings to life. Because if all I cling to, if all I say I have is, I'll just use myself as an example, is I say I'm a special forces soldier, and I've seen this, and I've probably said it myself. Like it says special right here on my shoulder. I'm special. I'm a Green Beret, right? And then you get told, and people say an ooh and ah over Green Beret. what are you though when the Green Beret goes away because of the ends?
You lose your identity.
You lose your identity, right? And that's a bad spot to be in, especially if you haven't taken care of your family along the way. Because now it's like, I'm not a Green Beret. I don't have a family to go home to spend the rest of my life with. That's a really easy place to end up. And then it's like, what is life worth living at this point? I've lost everything I met.
So much loss when people are getting out of the military, because that huge transition, like whether they're special forces or not, a lot of people find their identity in that job. And you don't even have to be in the military to find your identity in your job. But once you lose that, I mean, like you were saying, like that's all that you had, because that's what you put everything into.
Yeah, I think so. Now, I don't know if there's a statistic to go with the Army, but I do know there is with law enforcement.
Okay.
And so what I talk about in my class is the average age of retirement for law enforcement is 62.
Oh, okay.
The average age of death in law enforcement is 62.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
Yeah. So their identity is found in that uniform, and they usually probably don't, because they're like us, don't have great relationships with their spouses or their kids. And, you know, the law enforcement and military is they're kind of machines, in that once you're not there, they're going to keep rolling. They have a mission. They're going to do what they're supposed to do.
Right.
So the next guy fills the spot, and they just keep rolling. And whoever your friends were there, like they're still doing that thing. And now you're separated from it. Like you're cold from the group. Man, that's a tough thing to deal with, you know?
Yeah. So the last podcast episode we had, which was it was on recruiting and retention, focused and kind of like marketing and a few different other things. But it was a RRNCO from Hawaii. So like the culture there is very family oriented. So when it comes to places outside of that, like there's not as much family. And even when it's like RRNCOs and they're trying to meet mission out in the normal U.S. outside of Hawaii, it's pretty much like every man for himself.
Yeah.
I meet my mission, I'm done. Like there's no like battle buddy. Let me help you meet your mission now. But in Hawaii, it is that way.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if like in that community, if they had more of that sense of family.
Yeah.
If they could help each other. And I mean, I think eventually there will always be people that suffer from addiction, suicide, divorce.
Right.
That will always be an issue. But if there's little things we can do along the way as the National Guard, can't like just small things like helping your other person or the breathing exercises or things that we can implement.
Yeah. I think classes, retreats, just changing the culture. Turning the culture from, like you said, being, you know, every guy's from himself. When we leave work, like it's over and we don't think about it. And because here's what's crazy too, while we're on it, is the issue almost never shows up here at work. Like people perform here. When it shows up here, it's already a disaster at the house. And that's my experience with my guys that I've seen. They can hide it really well.
If there was one piece of advice that you could just give a soldier that's listening to this, maybe they're at that point where they've already surpassed all of the breathing exercises that are going to help them. They're kind of like either on the brink of suicide, or they're in the midst of addiction, or they're almost getting divorced. What could you say to them or give to them that would help them?
I would say speak up. There are people that care. There are organizations that care. There are people that would, you know, we call them your 3 a.m. friends, basically. There are people that will answer the phone. So I would say before you make a permanent decision, whether it's divorce or suicide or continuing down a path of addiction, speak up and self-identify and let people help you. That's how we break the culture and change the culture, is when people reach out there, someone is there to grab them by the hand and help them walk through whatever it is, because you're not alone.
You're really not alone. There's always someone that's going through something similar, or they've gone through something similar.
Absolutely. Yep.
They're always going to be willing. Most people are willing to listen to whatever you have going on. And even if they feel like they can't solve the problem or fix the problem, they're going to point you in the direction that will solve and possibly fix the problem.
100%. And I would say for someone that isn't there, maybe you're a young soldier or whatever, I would say probably the most important thing I could tell you is find a good mentor. Find someone, an NCO or officer, whoever it is, someone that is more mature than you, and you know they are, and that's already lived some life. They have some experience, and talk to them. Pick their brains about everything. I wish I would have had solid mentorship as a young private, you know. So yeah, I think that's probably hands down the most important thing, and that's the NCO core. That's what it's supposed to be. So find somebody that you look up to that seems to be crushing it, and make them your mentor. And if you find out that they're not crushing it, then you have the adaptability to flex and find someone that does fit where you want to be in life and how you want to live your life going forward.
I'm glad you said that, because sometimes people say, and I agree with them, that surround yourself with the people that you want to become, not the person you are now. That's right. So I enjoyed that you said that, for sure.
Thank you.
SMTB has some courses coming up in the next few months. We have MEPS, SLC, RSC, URNCO, Marketing, Battalion Pre-Command, and OSM. And if you're interested in any of those courses, please reach out to our ops cell. Thanks for listening to the 3 Tenets podcast. Before we go, be sure to follow us on social media if you haven't already, and be on the lookout for our monthly 3 Tenets newsletter. Then stay tuned for next month's episode, where we meet up with another special guest.